Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to a second edition of the All In with Nate mock drafts conversation. We talked about the first five picks on Tuesday. So today we're going to talk about the teams between 6 to 10, which is the Raiders, the Jets, the Saints, the Panthers, and the Bears. But before we get into them, what's going on, buddy? Like I said, we're covering those teams from 6 to 10. We'll be back on Saturday to cover teams 11 through 15. But again, like I said, we're getting ready to talk on the Raiders. They are a very interesting team that we'll get a chance to talk about in a second. But before we get into the Raiders, let's hit this preview real quick.
Coming in at number 6, the Las Vegas Raiders. They entered the 2024 season with hopes that they were building towards the future with new head coach Antonio Pierce. It even got a boost after beating the Ravens on the road in week 2. However, they would go on to lose 10 consecutive games. And at the end of the season, they ended up winning 2 games against the Jaguars and the Saints. However, that was not enough to keep the head coach. He got fired. Pete Carroll replaced him. The GM got replaced. Their one bright spot was the breakout of Georgia tight end Brock Bowers, who had an outstanding rookie season. Now, the Raiders come into this offseason looking to totally rebuild this offense and defense. Now, we discuss their top needs. We discuss what they'll do with the 10 picks they have in the NFL draft, and also see what our mock draft say that they are currently projected to do at number 6. Up next, the Raiders.
I tried my best to get the Raiders down like Chris Berman tried to do. But again, we're talking about the Raiders here. The Raiders are one of those teams where they are very talent deficient. So they really can't go wrong in this draft. Of course, they brought in Geno Smith in a trade from Seattle. Like I said, Pete Carroll's their head coach. So that team is in a total rebuild, to be brutally honest, because, I mean, look at the roster. You got Max Crosby on defense, but then you look at the rest of the defense, like, well, there's the other talent on that defense at this point. You got a elite tight end in Brock Bowers, but when you look at their weapons in Vegas, they don't really have a lot. So they're in a tricky situation as far as how they can really rebuild this team. So once again, they don't really have, me personally, I think they have more than one need. But I want to show the top needs that they're giving the Raiders at the moment. So their top needs are the quarterback, even though they got Geno Smith. I don't think Geno's going to be a long-term solution there. Offensive line, kind of self-explanatory. The Raiders really don't have talent on that offensive line. To be honest, they were 29th. They were 29th in pressure allowed last season, and they are young. Last year they drafted Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, and then they got Delmar Glaze from Maryland. So they're fairly young on that offensive line. And of course, bringing in a veteran like Geno Smith, you got to have a little more to work with than what you have on that offensive line. Tev said Lil Prime coming. That'd be an interesting move for them. That'd be great for him to learn, at least with Geno Smith in the building. They may have to go that route. They really do need a quarterback, to be honest. And as I also mentioned, in their secondary, they don't really have a lot of talent in the secondary right now. I want to say they were one of the worst secondaries in the league last season. Nate Thompson free agency. I think Jack Jones left. So they don't really have any talent in that secondary at this point. So we're going to look at the depth chart too in a second. John, what's going on, bro? Said I would love to see Shedeur in Vegas. I would too. I think that'd be a great fit for them, and they really need somebody to upstart that team going forward. But this is the Raiders depth chart just to show you guys what I mean about the Raiders at this point. The Raiders just don't have talent like that. Let me try to get myself down here. Okay, that's better. But this is the offense right now. Right now at quarterback is Geno Smith. They brought him in this offseason. They signed Raheem Mostert to a 1-year deal. The tight end is Brock Bowers. Look at the wide receiver core in Vegas. No disrespect to Jacoby Myers, but Jacoby Myers is not a wide receiver 1 or 2. He's a solid 3. But when you look at the rest of the roster, you got Trey Tucker. You got Ramel Caton, who a lot of you have probably never heard of. because I personally haven't heard of them either. And I watch a lot of college football, so this is pretty bad. But as you see, this is the roster. This is the Raiders pack wide receivers. What's going on, Ryan? They're wide receivers. As you see, they got Colton Miller still, but when you look at the rest of their offensive line, Jordan Meredith, Jackson Powers Johnson, Dylan Parham, and DJ Glaze is their offensive line, and that's not a lot of talent on that offensive line, to be honest with you. So they're going to have to do something to figure this thing out on that offense. But let me go to the defensive side of the ball for the Raiders. As you see, they got Max Crosby. I forgot they got Christian Wilkins. I totally forgot about him. As you see, they could actually address the opposite side. They got John Laulu, Malcolm Kuntz, and Tyree Wilson is really turned into a bust at this point. I have to go ahead and say it. So they signed Devin White to upgrade at linebacker. They brought in Landon Roberts from Pittsburgh. But when you look at their secondary, they got Jeremy Chin from the Commanders. But other than that, that secondary is depleted. Ja'Cory Bennett right now would be their outside number 2 corner. And sure, a lot of you probably know from the video game Madden because he's fast, but I mean, that's not correlated to the NFL field. They brought in Eric Stokes from Green Bay, but when you look at this roster, they don't have a lot of talent in it. They have honestly, no talent in the secondary. Just to be honest, this could be a place where, truthfully speaking, you could go a Will Johnson, you could go a Malachi Starks, you could go a Benjamin Morrison. These guys, they got to really address that secondary this offseason. Well, especially the draft. They got, I want to say they have, as I said below, they got 9 picks. So they got an opportunity to do it. Let's see. Ryan said, glad we got rid of Stokes. He said, hey, chill out on my Georgia boy, man. Chill out on my Georgia boy, man. It wasn't him, man. He was going through it. So, you know, that's the depth chart for the Raiders. But I know I've been talking about what the mock drafts are saying, and I'm going to give you guys a preview of that. So, just to give you all an outlook on what the mock drafts are saying, and a lot of these were updated today. So I keep up with a lot of the mocks each week. So for CBS Sports, shout out to Ryan Wilson and Chris Raposo. They got the Raiders taking Tanner McMillan. That's the big wide receiver from Arizona. That will be big for them. They don't have a wide receiver right now. Mike Renner, Josh Edwards, Kyle Stackpole, and Garrett Padell has them taking Ashton Jeanty, the star running back from Boise State. That'll be a great fit for him. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed. To me, the Raiders can go best player available, and that wouldn't hurt them. Pete Prisco has them taking Jahdae Barron to the from the corner from Texas. Brett Lewis has them actually trading out of the first round totally. So that'll be an interesting thing to see. Walter Football has them taking Will Johnson from Michigan, and Mel Kiper also has them taking Ashton Jeanty at number 6. So one way or another, the Raiders have to upgrade their talent on that team on all sides of the ball. They don't just have issues at the on one side. They can really upgrade on both sides of the football. And I'm gonna be intrigued to see what the Raiders do. I think they have a new GM that's in there, so this is gonna be intriguing. It's gonna be very intriguing what Pete Carroll does. We know Pete Carroll loves running the football, so Ashton Jeanty would make sense at that spot. However, I mean, you can get running backs in the second round. You can get one of the Ohio State running backs. You can get a Trevor Etienne. You can get a Marion Hampton, whose name has been flying up the draft boards, but I don't think he's a top 10 pick. So, again, the Raiders can't go wrong with what they're doing here. John said, I'm interested to see where Travis Hunter ends up. I don't think he makes out the top 4. I think he's going to be going somewhere within that top 4. He could be as high as Cleveland or as low as New England. I don't think he gets past number 4, to be honest. But that is the Raiders that I touched on. We're going to get ready to move on to the next team on the board, which is the New York Jets. And the Jets, as you all know, the Jets were highly touted with the situation. Let me hit this comment real quick. Tev says, so what is Tom Brady's role? That's what I'm trying to figure out, too. I don't really know his role in depth. That's a great question. I would love to find it out and see how that impacts on the draft in the next couple of weeks. And Jay, what's up, my brother? But moving on to the second team on the board is the New York Jets. But before we talk about the Jets, let's get ready to see a quick preview of last season with the Jets, and see just kind of lead into this.
Coming in at number 7, the New York Jets. The Jets came into the season with high expectations, even some picking them to be a Super Bowl team. However, that was far from the case, as they would fall to 5-12. They had injuries. They had bad quarterback play from Aaron Rodgers, which led to Robert Saleh getting fired, and GM getting fired, and even getting rid of Aaron Rodgers and other key veterans. Now, they got a new head coach in former Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. They got a new GM. They brought in Justin Fields to replace Aaron Rodgers. Brandon Stevens was added to the defense, so was Andre Cisco. And the Jets coming to the season with several draft picks, and they will look to revamp the youth movement in New York. So now we explore the top needs, the expectations, and what the mocks are saying at number 7 for the New York Jets. Up next, the New York Jets, Jets.
All right, the second team on the board, as I mentioned, the Jets. The Jets was in a weird situation last year because the talent was good enough for them to actually win ball games, but they had a lot going on. They, outside of us dealing with Kirk Cousins, they also had it suffered big time with Aaron Rodgers having a complete fall off last season. Of course, they are in a situation where they now have a new GM, new head coach, and some of their biggest needs, I think. So for me, the Jets don't have as many needs as most of these teams in the top 10. They can really hit on a couple of things here and there, and it can work out for them going forward. I like to see what Justin Fields can do in New York. He's getting an opportunity. He was a solid game manager in Pittsburgh. To me, all you need to do is you got Breece Hall, you got a solid running back in the backfield. You got Garrett Wilson, who was really solid. So, I mean, you have pieces to work with. Aaron Glenn's a very good coordinator. He was a very good coordinator for the Lions. I would love to see what he's going to do with that defense in New York, because you got pieces that you can work with out of New York. So, let me see. Ryan said easy on. Listen, I love Aaron Rodgers. He was one of my favorite quarterbacks of the recent era. However, Aaron was nowhere near the guy that we've been watching for years in Green Bay. And Ryan Burns said he wide receiver the offensive line. I totally agree. And as he mentioned that, let me bring this up. The Jets' top draft needs are quarterback, wide receiver, right tackle, tight end, and defensive tackle. Yes, they see to get a quarterback at a point in the draft. If they went and got Shedeur, I would not be mad. No disrespect to Justin Fields, but you need a signal caller long term. I don't look at that contract that Justin Fields got. I want to say it was a 2-year deal, and say they're going long term to to deal with Justin Fields. Now, if he happens to be a solid quarterback there, then maybe. But I don't think that they are set on, okay, we're going to take our future past 2 seasons with Justin Fields. So they could very well look at Shedeur in this draft. That could be a very, very key situation right here. Because if Justin Fields fall off, they can cut bait and keep it moving. What's up, my boy Armand? He's checking in. They drafted my twin, Armand. Yes, sir. And that's correct. It really was 1 year. Yes, 1-year deal, basically. And tells him my boy Justin Fields might have a breakout season. I ain't taking no disrespect today. Listen, that's no disrespect to Justin Fields. However, he is in a situation where you're in a show me deal. If he can become a really stout starting quarterback, they don't have to worry about going to get a quarterback this year. But at the same time, you need security in New York if he doesn't work out. You have to just be honest with yourself at this point with Justin Fields. And I hate to say it like that, but that's just the truth. But also they got wide receiver as another need. Yes, the Jets definitely need to get another wide receiver, because outside of Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams is no longer there. They got Alan Lazard. Lazard, that's an Aaron Rodgers boy. So you need to get your wide receiver, and there's talent in this draft to go pick you up a wide receiver at a point in this draft. Right tackle, they definitely need to get a right tackle. They got to upgrade. They actually upgrade a couple of spots on that offensive line, but right tackle is one of those key ones. Tight end. Now, this could be an interesting situation too. They could very well shock everybody in the draft and go pick Colston Loveland or what's his name? Cannot think his name. Tyler Warren from Penn State. One of those two could end up being the pick because, hey, the way I look at it is a young quarterback's best friend is a tight end. So to me, they could very well go get a tight end at this point. I know Jets fans would throw a fit if they did that at number 7. However, I think that's in play. And also defensive tackle. The Jets really don't have solid defensive tackles, and this could another to go alongside of Quentin Williams. They could very well go get a Mason Graham if he drops. They could go get a Kenneth Grant. They could look at that in the second round. That could be a second round pick though, if you're the Jets. But I'm gonna bring their depth chart up real quick, and we can that way we can kind of see if it kind of matches their needs that we were just discussing. I'm gonna go play this back full screen. Appreciate that, Armand and Ryan. Yeah, I had to think about it for a second. It's definitely Tyler Warren. But going back up to the depth chart, as you see right now, Justin Fields is the starting projected quarterback for the Jets. Breece Hall is running back running back 1. They picked up Andrew Beck and showed him she's gonna be the fullback. Garrett Wilson is the wide receiver number 1, but look at the other receivers. You got Josh Reynolds, Alan Lazard, Tyler Johnson, and Xavier Gibb. All those guys are you make a catch here and there. Give me 200 or 300 yards for the season and keep it moving. You don't have anybody that's on the opposite side of Garrett Wilson that can take the pressure off of him. So the Jets could definitely be looking at a wide receiver, especially in this draft, early in this draft. So that's something to pay attention to as well. They brought in Fashanu last year. There was their first round pick last year. Warren Carter is definitely not going to be a starting right tackle for the New York Jets in 2025. They would definitely upgrade that position. Elijah Tucker, they got him 2 years ago. But then when you look at the rest of this offensive line, you definitely are going to upgrade this offensive line for the Jets. Their current starters would be Joe Tippmann and John Simpson. So, yeah, they're going to upgrade that offensive line at some point in this draft. And it wouldn't shock me if Mimbo is the pick at number 7, especially if Will Campbell is potentially gone to New England, which we saw in the first show that they kept projecting. Tev said Jets being mad. I see they're not far off offensively. They just got to hit a couple of things in this draft to really make it work. Armand said it sounds like the Jets are going to commit to running the ball using 3 running backs. So I can see that because you still got Braylon Allen from last season, and they're drafting the offensive. I think they're drafting the offensive line too. I'll be shocked if there's anything else at number 7. Let me move down to the defensive line. They're still running a 4-3 like. Will McDonald's the 1 starter. You got Quinn in the middle. They brought in Derek Nundy. You got Jermaine Johnson still on the right side. You got Sherwood and Quincy Williams here, linebackers. Down this corner room could be addressed. They brought in Brandon Stevens from Baltimore. But when you look at the rest of the second quarter, you could definitely see an upgrade there. They did bring in Cisco to finally kind of better that safety room because that safety room has been questionable for a while. So that's a good pickup for them. But again, as you can see, they could definitely use a solid player to go on the opposite side. You could look at a Deion Walker later in the draft. You look at Walter Nolan in the second round if he doesn't go first round, of course. So these are guys that you can look at later on down the road. But this is the depth chart for the Jets. But I have 2 things I actually want to show for the Jets real quick. The first one I'm going to talk about what the mocks are saying, but I don't know if he's tuning in right now. But shout out to my boy Justin Brown. He's a Jets fan. He threw up a mock, and I wanted to. And also, by the way, just giving you all a heads up going forward. If I'm going to be talking about your team in an upcoming show, know your draft order. Number 1, know your draft order. And then you are welcome to send me in your mock drafts. You can go to Pro Football Network and do your own mock draft, and I will show it on here just to kind of give a little context from your fan base just to show where you're kind of going with this thing. So if you haven't done it yet, you will still have chances. And if I have talked about your team already, we will go back and we will explore it on draft night. We'll do it basically maybe before the draft, to be honest. But the mock drafts for the Jets, First CBS has multiple pundits going. This Jets taking Armand Mimbo, the right tackle from Missouri. Chris Raposo has him taking Shedeur. Kyle Stackpole has him taking Tyler Warren. Pete Prisco has him taking Mason Graham. That addresses that defensive tackle situation we were talking about. Rhett Lewis from NFL.com also has taken Armand Mimbo. Walter Football has taken Mason Graham. And Mel Kiper has taken Armand Mimbo. So as you see, it looks like a lot of the pundits are definitely picking the Jets to go get them a set right tackle, which they absolutely need to get. But the setting I said I want to show was from an actual Jets fan. Shout out to my boy Justin Brown. This is his mock that he gave for his team, which kind of correlates with what we were talking about earlier. He's taking Mason Graham at number 7, which is upgrading their offensive line. Tight end Mason Taylor. That would be a great tight end addition for the Jets in the second round. Elite Ayo Manor, the wide receiver from Stafford. He's a really solid wide receiver. I've always liked his game. I wish he actually would have stayed another year at college. I think he'd have been a higher rated guy. But small money, and of course, y'all know how I feel about small money. He's one of the really solid linebackers from last year's Georgia's defense. Quinn Ewers, that's an actually great consideration for the Jets. They can use a quarterback at some point in this draft. Jalen Rivers from the offensive tackle from Miami. By the way, shout out to Armand. He said it's his cousin. Oh, he said it's just kidding. Okay. Clay Webb. Clay Webb is one of those underrated guards from Jacksonville State right now. He's not getting a lot of attention, but I think that's a name we could really start hearing more and more as we get closer to the draft. And Kobe King, the linebacker from Penn State, was the other pick that he picked for the Jets. And I appreciate you, Justin, for that mock draft. Again, I appreciate it. That gives a little further context from the Jets' perspective. But moving on, we're going to be talking about, we're getting into my division now. We're going to talk about the Carolina Panthers. And the Panthers are a team they're in an interesting spot because I feel like the Panthers started to show some signs of progression towards the end of 2024. And with a good offseason, you never know. They could really be a pretty good ball club. And I don't know if they're division title ready yet, but they're definitely going to be a competitive out. But before we talk about the Panthers, let's bring up the preview.
Up next at number 8, the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers did not have a lot of expectations entering this season. They were expected to still be one of the worst teams in the league as they were very depleted of talent. However, they started to have a glimmer of optimism later in the season. At the first half, Bryce Young was benched. But once he came back from a benching late in the season, Bryce Young definitely started to show signs of heading in the right direction. They nearly beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Carolina. They took the Buccaneers to overtime, and they almost won on the road at Philly against the Super Bowl champion Eagles. And then there was another drop late in the season by Xavier Legette, and they finished their final game with a really good performance on offense against the Falcons to end the season. Now the Panthers enter this offseason. They still got a lot of needs as far as talent, but they will look to address a lot of that in the NFL draft, including with the 9 picks that they currently own. Let's get into their top needs. Let's get into what the mocks are saying. Up next, the Carolina Panthers.
All right, the Carolina Panthers, as I mentioned, they're a pretty young team. These guys have a lot of potential to be a better and competitive ball club going forward. They're young. I like what I saw from Bryce Young in the second half of 2024. And he completely dialed us up that last game of the season. I was so mad, but he played a good game. I'm not going to sit here and ever knock him for how well he played that game, by the way. So I think they did hit on getting Bryce Young now. I think we're starting to see the potential with Bryce Young. And now they really just need to build around Bryce Young, put some talent on the team because, I mean, they were in a tricky position where they didn't really have a lot of talent coming in last year. So I would love to see them actually add some talent around them. I know they're really high on Xavier Legette. However, I feel like you still need to add weapons on all levels. I'm not going to forget about Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard had a really good season last year, and he really should have finished with a better statistical season had they not shut him down the last 2 games of the season. I don't know why they did it, but they did shut him down the last 2 games. But once again, let me hit this comment from Tev. He said Bryce the dog. Yeah, I think Bryce Young can really take a big step if they put some weapons around that guy there in Carolina. I'm intrigued to see. This is one of them interesting off seasons where if things go right, they can really put something together in Carolina. But their top needs right now is a pass rusher. They don't really have a pass rusher over there. Derek Brown, to me, is a defensive tackle. He is not a defensive end. Safety, I don't even recall who their safety room is. I know we picked up one of their safeties this offseason. I know Xavier Woods went to Tennessee, so they're definitely depleted at that spot. They definitely need to address getting multiple wide receivers in this draft. I definitely want to see the Panthers really explore that because, again, like we said, you got 34-year-old Adam Thielen, you got second-year players Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker. Like, they're not bad receivers, but you need a true threat on that team. To me, I don't feel like they have a wide receiver 1. Even as Xavier Legette, I don't feel like he's a wide receiver 1 yet. He could possibly break that mold this season, but I don't see it right now. But I'm gonna bring their depth chart up too as I'm on the topic of the Panthers. And first thing first, let me go back to here. So as you see right now, as I just mentioned, Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, and Adam Thielen is their starting receiving group. You gotta add that. You gotta add some weapons over there in Carolina. You have to. What's going on, my brother? Rail checking in. Also, as you see, they got Tommy Tremble. I think Javian Sanders is going to be a really good tight end once he got hurt towards the end of the season last year. So I think he can be a decent tight end once he get some more experience. I don't think their offensive line is pretty bad at all. I think they actually have some decent offensive linemen. They just don't really have a lot of weapons out there in Carolina. Well, I mean, they had their stretches where they were bad at a point. But I think that also was partially Bryce Young in the beginning because they were much better down the stretch. And Chuba Hubbard ran for over, 1,200 yards? So I can't just sit here and say that that's straight up him. But they got to add some more talent out there in Carolina for Bryce Young. Yes, I do agree. I would love to see Ted McMillan in Carolina. And that's actually a mock that I'll name off in a few that had some picking Ted McMillan. And Shane, what's going on? Checking it from Panther Nation, said Coker's a dog. I like Coker. I like what I saw out of him. Definitely like what I saw out of him. As you see, those are the needs right now. They could. Chuba Hubbard definitely got Rico Dowdle this offseason. I forgot they picked up Rico Dowdle. So you actually got a 1-2 punch. Jonathan Brooks is still banged up right now. But, again, Rico's actually he's pretty balanced. So you actually got you a 1-2 punch in Carolina. I actually like what they did there. Going to the defensive side of the ball, they got Derek Brown. Let's me just be brutally honest. I hate seeing players that should be defensive tackles at defensive end. This is how I feel. I know it's 3-4 defense in Carolina, but this is how I feel about Derek Brown. I think Derek Brown would be an absolute menace in the middle. I hate that they have him lined up as a defensive end right now. Bobby Brown and Tershawn Wharton. This team is definitely going to get a pass rusher. I'll be shocked if they don't walk away with one, especially in the first 2 rounds. Ja'Gard and Jadeveon Clowney. Trayvon Wallace is in the middle. Jewel Josie. They brought in Christian Rosenblum. They brought in Patrick Jones to be on the opposite side, but I don't see those guys being the starters. You still got Mike Jackson, Trayvon Murray. That's actually a good pickup at safety. Damani Richardson, they're going to get him a safety as well. J.C. Horn he just got paid big money, so he's going nowhere. They have to get him partner in crime at CB2. I like Mike Jackson, but I think Mike Jackson should be in the slot. Armand said that Carolina, yes, they're very tricky because with a good draft, this team could really be they could be problematic in the NFC. I don't know if they're playoff ready yet, but it can be problematic because they played some good games last season. They really should have beat the Chiefs, to be honest. The Chiefs got away with a lot of games, though, but that's the top four of the day. But they really had Carolina. I mean, see, they had the Chiefs beat in Carolina. They really played a good game against them. But these are just some of the positions right now that they're saying that the Panthers could upgrade. And I would be intrigued to see what their approach is going to be in the draft. But just to go to the next thing, what are the mocks projecting? And I know a lot of them are projecting Jalen Walker. It's going to break my heart. I'm not going to lie. It's going to break my heart to see my Bulldog there. But that'd be a great fit there. Agree. Xavier Leggett mentioned it in my preview that he dropped a big pass in that game that probably cost him the Eagles game as well. But the mocks right now, so Ryan Wilson has them taking Mike Green from Marshall. Christian Paul has them taking Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan. Mike Renner and Josh Evans have them going Jalen Walker, which would be a great fit for them. Kyle Stackpole has them taking Michael Williams. Garrett Padell has them taking Ted McMillan, and Pete Prisco has them going Colston Loveland. Rhett Lewis has them going Jalen Walker. Boston Football has them going Jalen Walker. Bell Kiper has them going Jalen Walker. So most people are saying that see Carolina in this spot going Jalen Walker or Michael Williams. They see them going pass rusher right here. But I mean, with the depth of this draft, they can't go wrong with either or Mike Green. That can't go wrong. I think this is one of the years where if you're in need of a pass rush, this is the year to do it. So Carolina has a golden opportunity to get them a upgrade at that position. And as we continue, I showed y'all the first part, but the second part, shout out to Shane and Nick Green. I don't know if he's tuned in too. They're Panther fans. I'm going to show their mocks. I think the second one was Shane. As you see, he has Carolina trading back. He picked up Malachi Starks, Kenneth Grant, Mason Taylor, Jarrett Wilson, Josiah Stewart, Small Munden, Dylan Sachs. This is actually this would be a really good draft if Carolina was in this position. Hey, Shay, you might need to go into the front office, sir, because this is actually a really good draft for the Carolina Panthers. This would give them they'll address a lot of their needs right here. I like this draft for them. Let me go to the other one up here. This is the one from Nick Green. He also has them trading back to take Malachi Starks, getting Andrew McCouber. That would be a really good double up right there. Denzel Berg, Princey, Umana Lynn from Ole Miss, Jordan Burch. That'd be a really good pickup. Jack Sawyer late, Kyron Lacey, Jimmy Horns. This is also a really good draft too. So I like the direction that both of them went with their picks. Yes, it is. Both of them did a really good job with their mock drafts. Shout out to both of them. This is definitely something that Carolina fans would be totally on board with if they did this, and this would actually make them a real problem if that GM goes into draft day and does this right here. So I like this. I like both of those mocks right there. So that's my take on Carolina. Moving on. We'll stay in the division to one of the teams that y'all know I don't like them, but hey, we're fair here. We talk about all teams in the division. And before we get into them, let me get ready to go up to the preview. Okay, Shane said in Dan Morgan we trust. Let me bring down the mock draft projections. Okay. So now let's get ready to switch over, let's get ready to see the preview for the number 9 team on the board, the New Orleans Saints.
At number 9, the New Orleans Saints. The Saints got off to the hottest start in those first 2 weeks, beating up on Carolina and beating up on Dallas by putting up over 40 points on both. After that game, the bottom fell in. They lost 7 straight games. They had a ton of injuries, including the key players like Derek Carr, Chris Olave, to name a few, to finish 5-12. And the Saints go into the offseason. They ended up letting several veterans go. and they are in a position where they're trying to embrace the youth movement, as several key Saints legends are now starting to either get to the back half of their career or they're starting to get close to being gone off of this roster. But the Saints enter the draft with 9 picks. Let's see what the mocks have them doing, what their top position needs are, and what the expectations will be going forward for the New Orleans Saints. Up next at number 9, the New Orleans Saints.
Okay, as we mentioned, the New Orleans Saints right here. The Saints are in a very hey. Before I get into the Pooh Saints draft, yes, sir. I would love to see the draft kick in the first round, but the Saints are in a weird spot. The Saints have a lot of veterans on that team. They got Cam Jordan, they got DeMario Davis. They finally moved on from Tyrann Mathieu, but that team is pretty old. They're pretty old, and it's time for them to finally embrace that they need to get away from the Drew Brees era and anything attached to the Drew Brees era. Because if they don't, they're going to be in this position. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the league in a few years. And they got to go ahead and hit on certain things because they actually have some young pieces there. They got Chris Olave. Shaheed's turning into a really good wide receiver. You got Chase Young that came back. I mean, you got pieces there that's, if they embrace the youth movement, they can actually be pretty good going forward. But they got to they got to embrace that youth movement. Finally, they have to, because I'm personally would have moved on from Cam Jordan this offseason, but that's just me. But I think we're going to see a lot of those veterans gone this offseason. The Marshawn Lattimore trade helped them out too. I forgot to bring it up on the screen. The Saints have 9 picks going into the draft because the last couple of years, they were actually in a bad spot because of the Eagles trade. They essentially gifted the Eagles Super Bowl ring, but we're going to leave that alone. But they definitely need to upgrade a couple of positions on that team, and we're going to get into that. Chase Young is his mid. Sad to say, that's Ohio State. Yeah, I understand that because I thought really have been that next level pass rusher in the league, and he just did not turn out to be that. Saints top needs cornerback, offensive line, defensive lineman, quarterback. They definitely got to upgrade that secondary. Yes, they've drafted Kool-Aid McKinstry in the second round last year, but they lost Marshawn Lattimore to the Commanders. Paulson Adebo signed with the Giants. So you don't really have, Alontae Taylor was a really solid slot corner, but I feel like you need to you have to consider getting you some young talent there, because right now they brought in Isaac Yiadom from San Francisco, but he's not a starter. They don't really have a starting corner on this team at all. So this could be a Will Johnson destination as well, in my opinion. Armand also said, this is Shadur. I've been seeing his name linked to the Saints a lot over the last week or so, and I would be sick to my stomach to have to root against this young man in New Orleans because I can't do it. Can't do it. But yeah, that's the first move that they got. Offensive line, they definitely need to upgrade the offensive line in a sense. Right now, they're currently starting. I'm gonna bring the depth chart up. I'm sitting here looking at the depth chart. My apologies. I'm gonna bring it up on the screen. Their depth chart. We look at the offensive line. Right now, so Eric McCoy is one of their solid starters. Cesar Ruiz is pretty decent. They got to upgrade the left guard. They just drafted Fuega last season, and Trevor Penning has been mid to an extent. So they could very well bring Will Campbell in to replace Trevor Penning on the opposite side. So that's a possible destination for Will Campbell or even Armand Membo as well, depending on which two are gone. Or it could be a Kelvin Banks destination. I know Saints fans do not want to hear that, but Kelvin Banks could potentially be the guy right there too. On defense, oh God. They're right now 4-3. They have Cam Jordan, but look at the rest of that defensive line. You got Brian Breesy, you got Devon Godchaux, you got Carl Granderson. That is definitely not what you're looking for at this point. Cam Jordan is easy. Chase Young is bagging up Cam Jordan, and that says a lot. But they got pieces that Brian Breach is a good defensive tackle. Isaiah Foskey, I thought he was going to actually be better than he was, but he hasn't broke out yet, or maybe he hasn't had a chance to break out yet. It could be the Eagles situation. Not saying that they're nowhere near the Eagles level, but I'm saying that the youth movement has not been embraced at all in New Orleans. Pete Warner's their middle line, right outside linebacker. Demario Davis, he's 36. This should be his last season. I wouldn't be shocked if you see a middle linebacker go right here. So they definitely got to upgrade in that spot. As I also mentioned, they could use in the secondary, as you see, Alontae Taylor, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and Yeodumas are the 3 corners right now. They did bring in Justin Reed. They still need to go get a replacement for Tyrann Mathieu. They cannot keep rocking with Tyrann Mathieu all these years. It's something that just give eventually. And the quarterback spot, Derek Carr's getting paid big money this year. Excuse me, with all these advertisers keep coming up. Derek Carr is getting paid big money this year, and they still could use a quarterback. Because look behind him, Spencer Rattler did not get a chance to break out like they wanted him to. Jake Haener also didn't get a chance to. They both played last year, but of course they're not starting caliber quarterbacks, or at least not yet. So this is why I see Shadeur's name getting linked to the Saints at this point. But I'm going to bring this depth chart off of the screen. Let me hit this comment real quick. Armand said they'll mess around to pick a defensive end. They passed on Lamar. Oh, God. That is still when they traded up in 2018, I just knew they were going up to get Lamar Jackson, and they went and got Marcus Davenport. And that was the beginning of the end of really their contending window in New Orleans, to be honest. So they got to make sure they hit in this draft. But just to get to the next thing, what are the mocks saying about the Saints? So the mocks currently, CBS Sports, everybody has them doing something different. Wilson has them going Kelvin Bates Jr., who I mentioned in the earlier few minutes ago. Christian Prosser has them taking Mason Graham. That'll be a big pickup for New Orleans. Mike Ritter has them going Will Campbell. Josh Edwards has them going Shedeur Sanders. Pete Prisco has them going Shedeur Sanders. Kyle Stackpole has them going Will Campbell. Garrett Fidel has them going Jalen Walker. Rhett Lewis has them going Shedeur. Mel Kiper has them going Shedeur. And Walter Football has them going Shamar Stewart. So as you see, they all kind of hitting along that same game plan that we're talking about with those top needs for the New Orleans Saints. But I also has the pleasure of my boy Desmond. He made a mock for the show. I appreciate him from Who Dat Nation giving me mock draft. This is what he said that the Saints should do. And in his mock, he has them taking Shamar Stewart as well. And looks like he has them either let it trading up or trading back. I'm not sure where he did right here. But as you see, got Matthew Golden. They traded up when he got Matthew Golden to put on the opposite side of Chris Olave, who's also been sort of suffering with those concussion issues. That's something that you hate to see. He's a really talented wide receiver. Picking up Jordan Hancock and Jalen Reed, that also addresses the replacement to Tyrann Mathieu, adding Shamar Turner, adding Miles Frazier on the offensive line, Jack Sawyer late, RJ Harvey late. They could use a running back because we don't know. Kamara is still their starting running back, but they could definitely use another guy at that spot. Jabbar Muhammad, the corner from Oregon, Kyron Lacy, that would make sense for them. Willie Lampkin, that also adds another offensive lineman. Johnny Walker, the edge from Mizzou, is another addition. You got Xavier Truss, the guard from Georgia, and then Will Shepherd. So definitely adding a lot of depth right here with this draft. It's not a bad draft at all for the Saints. And Armand said this is sound like a Saints type of pick. Yeah, it definitely does. But that is my take on the Saints. And last but not least, let's get to the final team on the board. The Chicago Bears, who has 7 picks entering this draft. And before we talk about the Bears and let's go ahead and get into the preview because the Bears are confusing me. I'm not gonna lie.
Coming in at number 10, the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears, for what they did in the offseason, had a very disappointing 2024 season. Now, Caleb Williams and Roma Dooms end up being their picks late in last year's draft, and they got off to a 4-2 start. Unfortunately, the bottom fell off after that. They won one game the rest of the season, which also led to their head coach getting fired in one of the goofs of the season against the Lions on Thanksgiving, as we probably all remember. But they entered this season with a new head coach in Ben Johnson. They got several key players in free agency. They still got Ryan Poles leading the way, but they picked up a couple of solid free agents such as Joe Thuney, Grady Jarrett, Drew Dahlman. So we're going to enter the 2025 draft with 7 picks for the Bears. Let's see what the top needs are, and let's see what the mocks are projecting the Chicago Bears to do to build around their young quarterback. Up next at number 10, the Chicago Bears.
As I said, the Chicago Bears, they're tricky. The Bears really need a young playmaker as far as defensively, but they also could stay pat and really put some talent around Caleb Williams. I think they got talent. They actually had a good offseason. Like I said, they got Grady to come in as a veteran. You got Joe Thuney. That's a great pickup on the offensive line. Drew Dahlman's a solid pickup on the offensive line. So you've seen them make moves this offseason to really put talent around Caleb Williams to try to make sure that he's pretty solid. The Bears may have their offensive line set yet, but I still couldn't go wrong adding to the position because you definitely want your quarterback to be protected going forward because you actually have some okay pieces. DeAndre Swift is a solid running back. You got a Dooms, you still got DJ Moore, you still got Cole Kmet. So you've got talent on that team that's producing. So you don't really have major holes on offense. Just upgrading that, probably I would say upgrading right guard would possibly be your best thing to do, or possibly upgrading Braxton Jones spot too. That could also be another thing for the Bears, but we'll see. Armand said, I think the Bears are going to be a team to trade up for Ashton Jeanty or stay at 10 to take Omarion. I can see that too. They could make a splash. That would be a big splash right there to put in the backfield for the Bears is Ashton Jeanty. I also think in the first show they had the Bears trading up to number 3 to take Abdul Carter. So the Bears is going to be that trick, going to be that wild card. I don't know what they're going to do. I think they're going to try to make something happen in this draft, though. But we'll see on draft night. We'll definitely see what happens on draft night. But their top needs the number one is offensive line, as I was just mentioning. They really don't have major needs there right now. However, they definitely need to get a left tackle because Braxton Jones has been injured. So, I mean, if you're sitting there and Kelvin Banks is sitting right here in your lap, you might as well go ahead and pick him at number 10, or you can get you a left tackle in the second round, or get you a splash player of some sort. They really use the best player available if you're the Bears at that spot. Also, defensive line. They brought in Odeyingbo and Grady Jarrett to help their pass rush and help Montez Sweat out. However, you still can't get enough of getting solid production from a pass rush, and Grady is in his mid-30s, so you still want to get you another productive piece that's going to be years down the road productive. So let me go to the depth chart for the Bears as I'm talking about the Bears right now. As you see, this is the offensive line. Like we said, Braxton Jones is still recovering from an injury, so they could absolutely upgrade that left tackle spot in Chicago. But the rest of their offensive line is pretty set. Caleb's QB1, of course. DeAndre Swift, they could actually pick up. Now, as Armand mentioned about them trading up for Genty, this would be a good Genty or Mario Hampton spot. Definitely. They could definitely use another dual threat at running back to really open their offense up. As you see, their wide receivers are pretty set. They got Duvernay. They picked up Olamide Zaccheaus, Romo Dunes, and DJ Moore, of course, is wide receiver 1 and 2. So they're set in a lot of spots on that offense. So they really don't have to really address a lot there. But when you get to the defense, we go to the defensive line. The defensive line, you got Montez Sweat. You still got Gervon Dexter, the 2-year player from Florida. Grady Jarrett adds to that offense, to the defensive line, or especially he's returning back to his true spot at defensive tackle in a 4-3. You brought in Oyingo to be your defensive end. I still would upgrade. And if I was them, I know a mock had them trading up for they had them trading up for what's his name? I'm sorry. He's ass keep popping up on the screen. But I would trade up for Abdul Carter, or even stay in spot and maybe pick up Michael Williams or Jalen Walker, somebody like that, if they're not gone already. Linebacker, they got TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds-Steele. So they're pretty solid. They're pretty solid at linebacker. You still got solid corners in Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson. Still got solid safety. So they don't have major needs. Talent-wise, on paper, they should be one of the competitive teams in the NFC. But it really comes down to the draft. And linebacker, they'll probably be in a great position to get solid linebackers in that second round, like a Jahad Campbell. I think he's going to be first round, though. Names like Barrett Carter, names like Smell Monday. Just I can't think of the depth at linebacker right now, but again, they have room to really upgrade in the day 2s and day 3s. So that's going to be interesting to see what the Bears will do in that spot as well. The mocks for the Bears have them kind of all over the place right now. So the Bears are projected. Let me come back onto the screen. So the Bears are projected through CBS. Ryan Wilson has to trade up for Abdul Carter. That's the mock I was just mentioning up earlier with New England. Christopher Apostle has him taking Shamar Stewart. Mike Renner and Kyle Stackpole has him taking Kelvin Banks. They're just going ahead and upgrading that tackle spot to have a stout offensive line. Josh Edwards have taken Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. Garrett Prodell, has them taking Will Campbell out of LSU. Pete Prisco has them trading with the Raiders up to 6 to go take Genty. Rhett Lewis from NFL.com has taken Tyler Warren. Boston Football has them taking Kenneth Grant, which would be a really good addition to that defensive line. And then Mel Kiper has them taking Tyler Warren as well. So the Bears are a tricky team. I think that they can really do well if they get things right in this draft. So going to be intrigued to see what the Bears do going forward. But the Bears aren't that far from being a really good team. And I look forward to seeing what Caleb does in his sophomore season in Chicago. But on that note, this has been the top. We've got through the top 10 picks. We've been doing a good job. So this is the wrap up of the 6 to 10 picks. We'll be back Saturday. And on Saturday, we got the Niners, the Cowboys, the Dolphins, I think it is. The Dolphins, the Colts, and I think it's the Colts and the Bengals. I've confirmed that. Or either the Cardinals. It's one of those. It's between that 11 to 15 range that I'm going to be talking about. I definitely won't be talking about the Falcons until the very, very end. They're going to have their own show. But if you're a fan of those teams, you want to create a mock draft, you have the opportunity to do that. I will send you the link. Also, on that particular Saturday show, if you would like to hop on and chime in on if yours are one of your teams, you are welcome to do so. I will put the StreamYard link in the comments to give you the opportunity to hop in and speak your piece or give me your mock draft. So either way, we're going to really get into this thing. We are now officially 2 weeks away from the draft. So we're going to knock these teams out. So by the time we get to the draft, we have touched on everybody. But until then, This has been an episode of All In with Nate, the mock drafts pick 6 to 10. Thank you for those that's tuned in. And for the ones that will watch later, I appreciate you as well. Come back, subscribe, like, share, always, and just leave comments. So we appreciate you. But until then, until Saturday, y'all have a good one. And we'll be back with picks 11 through 15.